The life of Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino and Donato di Nicolo de Beto Bardi. Spiritual Ministry Group members: Remark Albarico, John Barredo, Greg Harapan, Anthony Guido, Riza Morales, and Mary Grace Salva. Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino, a leading figure of Renaissance High Renaissance classicism, Raphael is best known for his Madonnas, including the Sistine Madonna, and for his large figure composition in the Palace of the Vatican in Rome. A Madonna is a picture, statue, or a medallion of a Madonna. Typically, a lady depicted and seated, holding the infant Jesus.
Who is Raphael? Italian Renaissance painter and architect, Raphael became Perugino's apprentice in 1504. Living in Florence from 1504 to 1507, he began painting a series of Madonnas in Rome from 1509 to 1511. Who is Raphael? Italian Renaissance painter. He painted the Stanza della Signatura, frescoes located in the Palace of the Vatican. He later painted another fresco cycle for the Vatican in the Stanza Eliodoro. In 1514, Pope Julius II hired Raphael as his chief architect. Around the same time, he completed his last work in his series of the Madonnas, an oil painting called the Sistine Madonna. Raphael died in Rome on April 6, 1520.
Early life and training. Raphael was born Raffaello Sanzio on April 6, 1483 in Urbino, Italy. At that time, Urbino was a cultural center that encouraged the arts. Raphael's father, Giovanni Santi, was a painter for the Duke of Urbino, Federico da Montefeltro. Giovanni taught the young Raphael basic painting techniques and exposed him to the principles of humanistic philosophy at the Dukes of Urbino's court. In 1494, when Raphael was just 11 years old, Giovanni died. Raphael then took over the daunting task of managing his father's workshop. His success in this role quickly surpassed his father's. Raphael was soon considered one of the most finest painters in the town. As a teen, he was even commissioned to paint for the Church of San Nicolai in the neighboring town of Castello. In 15,000, a master painter named Pietro Vanucci, otherwise known as Perugino, invited Raphael to become his apprentice in Perugia, in the Umbria region of central Italy. In Perugia, Perugino was working from frescoes at the Colegio de Cambia. The apprenticeship lasted 4 years and provided Raphael with the opportunity to gain both knowledge and hands-on experience. During this period, Raphael developed his own unique painting style, as exhibited in the religious works Mount Crucifixion, The Three Graces, The Knight's Dream, and the Audi altarpiece, Marriage of the Virgin.
In 1504, Raphael left his apprenticeship with Perugino and moved to Florence, where he was heavily influenced by the works of the Italian painters Fra Bartolomeo, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Masaccio. Raphael, these innovative artists had achieved a whole new level of depth in their composition. By closely studying the details of their work, Raphael managed to develop an even more intricate and expressive personal style that was evident in his earlier paintings. From 1504 to 1507, Raphael produced a series of Madonnas which extrapolated on Da Vinci's works. Raphael's experimentation with this theme culminated in 1507 with his painting La Belle Jardinière. That same year, Raphael created his most ambitious work in Florence, the Entombment, which was evocative of the ideas that Michelangelo had recently expressed in his Battle of Cascina.
Raphael moved to Rome in 1508 to paint in the Vatican stands, or in English room, under Pope Julius II's patronage. From 1509 to 1511, Raphael toiled over what was to become one of the Italian High Renaissance most highly regarded fresco cycles, those located in the Vatican Stanza della Signatura, or Room of the Signatura, the Stanza della Signatura. Series of fresco included the Triumph of religion or disputation of the Holy Sacrament in the school of Athens. In the fresco cycle, Raphael expressed the humanistic philosophy that he had learned in the Urbino court as a boy. In the years to come, Raphael painted an additional fresco cycle for the Vatican, located in the Stanza Eliodoro, featuring the expulsion of Heliodorus, the miracle of Bolsena, the repulse of Attila from Rome, and the liberation of Saint Peter. During the same time, the ambitious painter produced a successful series of Madonna paintings in his own art studio. The famed Madonna on the Chair and Sistine Madonna were among them. In the years to come, Raphael painted an additional fresco cycle for the Vatican, located in the Stanza Eliodoro, featuring the expulsion of Heliodorus, the miracle of Bolsena, the repulse of Attila from Rome, and the liberation of Saint Peter. During the same time, the ambitious painter produced a successful series of Madonna paintings in his own art studio.
By 1514, Raphael had achieved fame for his work at the Vatican and was able to hire a crew assistant to help him finish painting for gross in the Stanza del Quinto, freeing him up to focus on other projects. While Raphael continued to accept commissions, including portraits of Pope Julius II and Leo, and his largest painting on canvas, the Transfiguration Commission in 1517. He had by this time begun to work on architecture. After Architect Bramante died in 1514, Pope Julius II hired Raphael as his chief architect. Under this appointment, Raphael created the design for a chapel and Saint Eligio degli Eroffici. He also designed Romeo Santa Maria del Popolo Chapel and an area within Saint Peter's new basilica. Raphael's architectural work was not limited to religious buildings. It also extended to designing places. Raphael's architecture honored the classical sensibilities of his predecessor, Donat Bramante, and incorporated his use of ornamental details. Such details would come to define the architectural style of the late Renaissance, early Baroque periods.
On April 6, 1520, Raphael's 37th birthday, he died suddenly and unexpectedly of mysterious causes in Rome, Italy. He had been working on his largest painting on canvas, The Transfiguration, commissioned in 1517. At the time of his death, when his funeral mass was held at the Vatican, Raphael's unfinished Transfiguration was placed on his coffin stand. Raphael's body was interred at the Pantheon in Rome, Italy. Following his death, Raphael's movement towards Mannerism influenced painting styles in Italy's advancing Baroque period. Celebrated for the balance and harmonious compositions of his Madonnas, portraits, frescoes, and architecture, Raphael continues to be widely regarded as the leading artistic figure of Italian High Renaissance classicism.
Donato de Niccolò de Beto Bardi. Italian sculptor Donatello is one of the most influential artists of the 15th century in Italy, known for his marble sculpture David, among other popular works.
Who was Donatello? Sculptor Donatello apprenticed early with well-known sculptors and quickly learned the Gothic style. Before he was 20, he was receiving commissions for his work. Over his career, he developed a style of lifelike, highly emotional sculptures and a reputation second only to Michelangelo's. Donatello was born Donato de Niccolò de Beto Bardi in Florence, Italy sometime in 1386. His friends and family gave him the nickname Donatello. He was the son of Niccolò de Beto Bardi, A member of the Florentine Wool Combers Guild, this gave young Donatello status as the son of a craftsman and placed him on a path of working in the trades. Donatello was educated at the home of the Martellis, a family and influential Florentine family of bankers and art patrons closely tied to the Medici family. It was here that Donatello probably first received artistic training from a local goldsmith. He learned metallurgy and fabrication of metals and other substances. In 1403, he apprenticed with Florence metalsmith and sculptor Lorenzo Ghiberti.
By 1408, Donatello was back in Florence at the workshops of the cathedral. That year, he completed a life-size marble sculpture, David. The figure allows a Gothic style, popular at that time, with long graceful lines of an expressionless face. The work reflects the influences of sculptors of the time. Technically, it was very well executed, but it lacks the emotional style and innovative technique that would mark Donatello's later work. Originally, the sculpture was intended the placement in the cathedral. Instead, it was set up in the Palazzo Vecchio, the town hall, as an expiring symbol of defiance of authority of Florentines, who were engaged in a struggle with the king of Naples at the time. Rapidly maturing in his art, Donatello's son began to develop a style all his own, with figures much more dramatic and emotional. Between 1411 and 1413, he sculpted the marble figure Saint Mark, placed in an interior niche of the San Michele church, which also served as a chapel of Florence's powerful craft and trade guilds. In 1415, Donatello completed the marble statue of seated Saint John the Evangelist for the cathedral in Florence. Both works showed a decisive move away from the Gothic style and towards a more classical technique.
By this time, Donatello was gaining a reputation for creating impulsive, larger-than-life figures using innovative techniques and extraordinary skills. Style incorporated the new science of perspective, which allowed the sculptor to create figures that occupied measurable space. European sculptures used a flat background or relief sculpting upon which figures were placed. Donatello also drew heavily from reality for inspiration in his sculptures, accurately showing suffering, joy, and sorrow in his figures' faces and body positions. In 1425, Donatello entered into a partnership with Italian sculptor and architect Michelozzo, who also studied with Lorenzo Ghiberti. Donatello and Michelozzo traveled to Rome, where they produced several architectural sculptural tombs, including the tomb of Antipope John XXII and the tomb of Cardinal Brancacci. Innovations in burial chambers would influence many later Florentine tombs.
By 1455, Donatello had returned to Florence and completed Magdalene Penitence, a statue of gaunt-looking Mary Magdalene, commissioned by the convent at Santa Maria di Castello. The work was probably intended to provide comfort and inspiration to the repentant prostitutes at the convent. Donatello continued at his work, taking on commissions from wealthy patrons of the arts. His lifelong friendship with the Medici family earned him a retirement allowance to live on the rest of his life. He died of unknown causes on December 13, 1466, in Florence and was buried in the Basilica of San Lorenzo, next to Cosimo de' Medici. An unfinished work was faithfully completed by his student, Bertoldo de Giovanni.